There was one major political upset in the big contest yesterday, as I mentioned, and this huge upset, unexpected by everyone, came in the biggest battleground in all the land. The Tallahassee liberal mayor beat out more moderate candidates in the Democratic primary for governor. Andrew Gillum made history, becoming Florida's first African-American major party candidate for governor. We'll speak to the mayor in just a moment. In November, he'll go up against the candidate President Trump has endorsed and did so just moments ago, the Congressman Ron DeSantis, who easily won the Republican primary last night. Today, he spoke to Fox News about his next opponent.
I think that he had grassroots energy. I think some of the other candidates were overrated, and he was able to capitalize off that. But, there's a difference between, getting some of the Bernie Sanders people to vote for you in a primary and then going to the broader Florida electorate and trying to sell that message.
Here to respond, the Democratic candidate for governor of Florida, the Tallahassee mayor, Andrew Gillum. Mr. Mayor, good afternoon and welcome to Fox News Channel.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, your opponents outspent you in candidate funds, $106 million to less than $7 million. You never led in a poll. You were fourth among Democrats in most of the polls. In the last 2 weeks, you surged. And when all the votes were counted last night, you beat a woman from a Florida Democratic political dynasty and all the rest. How did you do that?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a slow and steady process of 18 months. I literally moved around this state retailing my way through neighborhood associations, church conferences, anybody who we could get to talk to us, we talked to about the future of the state of Florida. I think it also helped, that as I was the only non-millionaire running for governor in the Democratic primary, born to my mother who was a school bus driver and my dad who was a construction worker, that my everyday lived experience in this state really better reflected that of the everyday Floridian over anybody else running. And I think that really played an important part in our messaging and how we came across and what we communicated around, I think, the kind of change that our state is looking for and what we deserve.
You took a new path compared to Democrats in recent cycles in the state of Florida. Rather than running as a moderate, you ran from the left. You ran on legalizing marijuana for Floridians. You ran on more attention to the environment, abolishing ICE, and abolishing the Stand Your Ground law. Will you be moderating for the primary as Democrats are wont to do in that state, or are you going to stay left?
Well, I tell you, I'm going to stay true. I'm going to stay consistent with my values, and I'm going to offer voters something to go out and vote for and not just against. I don't think it is a blue or red or a purple issue to say that you want clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, oceans that are not producing dead sea life because of blue-green algae that is suffocating the east and the west coast of the state of Florida. To say that we ought to pay teachers what they're worth, especially here in the state of Florida, where teachers' average salary is the 45th lowest out of 50 states.
Well, since you mentioned money,
that you want to dismantle the criminal justice system,
Since you mentioned money, Mr. Mayor, you also ran on universal health care, lots more money for schools and especially for teachers, raising the minimum wage to $15 for all Floridians. Specifically, Mr. Mayor, if elected governor, how are you going to pay for that?
Yeah, well, what we have proposed is an increase in the corporate tax rate, which in the state of Florida is lower than our neighboring states of Alabama and Georgia. Right now, we're at 5.25%, and we've suggested going up to just over 7%, which puts us in line with many other states. And part of what it creates $1 billion in funding for our public education system. And part of it is that I just don't believe that corporations choose states to locate in when they are 40th out of 50th in the public education system. They don't choose states to locate when they've got blue-green algae of guacamole content flowing out of the east and the west side of the state. Good corporations choose places where they can identify a good, strong workforce, where they can be ensured that their employees will enjoy a good quality of life. That's simply what we're offering here, and I think that that's how we're going to grow, in my opinion, a more robust Florida economy.
Analysts I've heard to have said the others didn't pay much attention to you in this primary because you were so far back. The attacks are coming, and they will come fast and furious. You ready for that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been elected for 15 years. I don't mind taking a punch, and I can deliver one myself. But the truth is that what Florida voters are looking for is a candidate who's going to speak to their issues. They're sick of the gutter politics. They hate this atmosphere of division and derision They really want a candidate who I believe is going to talk and speak directly to the things that impact them at their dinner table. That's what we did through this primary election, and that's what's going to allow us to win on November 6th in the general.
One of the things they'll probably come for you with is there's a big scandal in Tallahassee, and everybody in Florida and South Georgia and everywhere else knows about it. Some FBI agents came into Tallahassee, went undercover. USA Today calls it the biggest investigation in years and says indictments are as sure as an August afternoon thunderstorm. You've said that you're not a target of this investigation, but you were at a wine and dine with some good friends who could very well face federal subpoenas. And I wonder how you'll explain that and if you can ensure the voters of Florida that you had nothing to do with it and no troubles coming your way.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I've got no doubt in saying that I don't expect any trouble my way because I know my conscience, I know how I vote. I know what my values and principles are. The difference between me and Ron DeSantis, obviously, when it comes to the FBI, is that I've welcomed their investigation to get to the bottom of any corruption that might exist. In his case, he and Donald Trump have done everything that they could to undermine the FBI. That is, in my opinion, where we draw a strong difference with each other. And again, I'm happy to talk about what the issues are in this race. I'm not going to be lectured, however, by any of my opponents, certainly not Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, about the FBI, especially given the way in which we have handled their investigation into any impropriety done by any individual by comparison to how they do.
Your November opponent, Ron DeSantis, as mentioned, was on Fox News Channel this morning. And since then, there has been a bubbling on the internet. It's trending. It's at the top of most political websites. Something that he said to our host, Sandra Smith, regarding the upcoming election. I want to let our viewers hear what was said.
So we've got to work hard to make sure that we continue Florida going in a good direction. Let's build off the success we've had on Governor Scott. The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda with huge tax increases and bankrupting the state.
It was the monkey this up part. Sir, your response.
Yeah, that part wasn't lost on me. It's very clear that Mr. DeSantis is taking a page directly from the campaign manual of Donald Trump. But I think he's got another thing coming to him. If he thinks that in today's day and age, Florida voters are going to respond to that level of derision and division, they're sick of it. What we're trying to offer in this race is a North Star for where we want to go as a state.
Was that racist or a figment of speech?
Well, in the handbook of Donald Trump, they no longer do whistle calls. They're now using full bullhorns.
And that was a bullhorn?
And what I've got to say about that is that we've got to make sure that we stay focused, I think, on the issues that confront everyday people. I'm not going to get down in the gutter with DeSantis and Trump. There's enough of that going on. I'm going to try and stay high and try to talk about what the North Star and the future is for the state of Florida and the people of this state. And I think that's what people want. They're just so sick of this divisive, derisive politics that have been coming out of Washington and has now infiltrated the politics of this state vis-a-vis Ron DeSantis. He's very clear on day one that he's willing to go down to the gutter. In our opinion, we're going to win this race because we're going to stay high and we're going to remind Floridians of what the true spirit of the American way is. And that's what I'm going to do as governor, help us reach that high mark as a state so that we're a leader again and not a back-of-the-pack state.
I got 30 seconds left. What'd you say to your kids last night?
Oh, my gosh. Well, Shep, they were with me as we saw the results coming in, and I don't mind sharing with you that they had zero interest as they rolled in. We just enjoyed each other, loved on each other, and am so blessed.
All the best. Thank you again. Thanks for coming on Fox News Channel. The news continues right after this.
New tonight, President Trump is praising Republican Congressman Ron DeSantis following his primary win. Mr. Trump's good words come despite a comment that DeSantis made about his Democratic opponent for governor, Andrew Gillum, who is black, comments that many find truly offensive.
Let's build off the success we've had on Governor Scott. The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda with huge tax increases and bankrupting the state. That is not going to work. That's not going to be good for Florida.
Monkey this up. This afternoon, Trump claimed he was not aware at all of the comments and showered praise on a candidate who has fully embraced it.
No, I didn't hear. Honestly, I tell you what, I know Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is extraordinary. He's an extreme talent, and he will make a fantastic governor of Florida. So I think Ron is, he's extraordinary in so many different ways.
Out front now, former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner and former senior communications advisor for the Trump campaign, Jason Miller. He was also a consultant on DeSantis' abandoned campaign for the Senate in 2016. Welcome to both of you. Nina, if I could begin with you, the DeSantis campaign is saying it's absurd to believe that him saying monkey this up has anything to do with race. In your view, is that credible?
Not at all, Jim, and of course they are, because they have the luxury to do so. I have a message for my white sisters and brothers in America. Don't ever use the word monkey or ape or anything like that. Don't even go down that street when it comes to African Americans. There's a painful history in this country of using that stereotype. It is used to dehumanize African Americans, and the representative knew exactly what he was doing when he said that. And it wasn't a dog whistle, it was a bullhorn to certain folks in this country who still see and believe that African Americans are less than. During the antebellum South, during Jim Crow, and even in the 21st century, there have been caricatures of even President Obama, First Lady Michelle Obama, Jackie Robinson, an athlete, had to face that too, throwing bananas and showing images of them as apes. So not only did the representative use that deliberately, my message to my white sisters and brothers in this country, don't even go down that street ever when referring to an African American.
Jason Miller, your response?
Well, where I would agree with Senator Turner is that as a candidate running for office, you have to be very careful in the words that you choose, particularly in this hyper-charged, hyper-partisan environment where literally every single phrase and every single expression is going to be analyzed and looked at and picked apart. But what I will say about Ron DeSantis, and I had the opportunity to work with Ron in 2015 and 2016 and got to know both he and his wife Casey, is that I never heard Ron DeSantis make a single disparaging remark. And don't just take it from me. If you look back at his record in the Navy, at Harvard Law, at Yale, all the way going back to when he took his team to the Little League World Series and came up from pretty humble beginnings, he has a very impeccable record. I know his character and can speak to the way that he has conducted himself and how he interacts with people. But this is a little bit of I think, a wake-up moment, I think, for him as a candidate going for statewide office, that literally folks are going to look at every single detail. Now, when you went back and you saw the entire point, I think it was pretty clear that Ron DeSantis was talking about the economic progress that Florida has made under Governor Rick Scott. And I do think that as this general election moves along, I do think that Andrew Gillum is going to have to answer for some of these liberal economic policies. And I think that's going to be very problematic for me. The fact of the matter is Florida and the U.S. can't afford this Medicare for all or 40% increase in the corporate tax.
A conversation. No, and I appreciate that point. It's an important point, but conversation for another time. I do want to get to Andrew Gillum's response earlier today, because he said the following. He said that DeSantis is, quote, taking a page directly from the campaign manual of Donald Trump. And to be clear here, let's remind our viewers of some examples of what he's talking about. You'll remember Trump called his former aide Omarosa a dog on Twitter. He mocked LeBron James, my colleague Don Lemon's intelligence, tweeting, quote, LeBron James was just interviewed by the dumbest man on television, talking about Don Lemon. And as you know, he regularly questions the intelligence of Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Have a listen.
She is a low IQ individual, Maxine Waters. I said it the other day. I mean, honestly, she's somewhere in the mid-60s, I believe that.
Crazy Maxine. Low IQ person. Low IQ.
Maxine. She's a real beauty. Maxine. A seriously low IQ person.
Now, Nina and Jason, you cannot say that the president did not intend that those were slip-ups. Those were very intentional and using words that many take and see as truly intentionally offensive. Nina, I wonder if you could make a point, and let's give Jason a chance to respond.
No, Jim, I mean, that's it. And I'm glad. And look, I got lots of respect for Jason, and maybe his relationship with the representative is what it is. But the point is this. He used the word monkey deliberately. All of the sound that we just heard coming out of the president's mouth was deliberate. In this country, in the 21st century, African Americans are still trying to overcome the vestiges and the stereotypes in this country that paint us as less than. Monkey was used deliberately by the representative, and what he should have done, instead of trying to hide under the cloak of politics, he should have apologized and said that he would never, ever let it happen again, instead of making it seem like it's just a political issue. This is an issue about the value of black lives in this country all the way across the board, and his white privilege allowed him the capacity and the audacity to refer to an African-American candidate in that way. He didn't say giraffe. He didn't say bird. He said monkey. So again, my message to my white sisters and brothers in this country, whether you're Representative DeSantis or you just the average person in this country, do not use the word monkey or ape or chimpanzee. Don't even march down that street when it comes to African Americans. The stereotypes and to dehumanize African Americans and to treat us as less than, refer to us as less than human, that is why the word monkey was used. So I don't buy it that he didn't understand what he was saying. This is not about Mayor Gillum's policy. Let's debate the policies, but don't use the word monkey.
Jason, since the president has often, let's be frank, used words like that, apparently, seemingly with political intention to send a message to audiences who welcome that kind of language, is it plausible that this is what DeSantis was doing here?
I don't think, well, a couple things. That was kind of a loaded question. I think there's let me go and unpack this a little bit. First of all, I don't think that there was anything intentional, respectfully speaking, Senator Turner. I don't think there was anything intentional with what Ron DeSantis said today. I think if he could take it back, well, respectfully, we'll disagree. Now, where I will agree with you is I think that a candidate who's running for office needs to be very careful with the words that they pick. And I will agree that, especially if you're a white candidate running against an African-American candidate, there are certain phrases or certain expressions that just don't work if you're running against an African-American candidate, because even if it's completely unintentional, it's going to become a racial issue. And so I completely agree with you, and I think you make a very valid point. But knowing Ron DeSantis and having spent a lot of time around him, he would not go and make a comment like this intentionally. So to that point, but also to the point about President Trump and using, insulting people on the trail. I mean, look, he insulted basically every candidate that he ran against in 2016, whether it be John Kasich or Jeb Bush or Ted Cruz.
But it's not the same,
and there are people all the way across the board. And look, that's not, I wish he wouldn't insult folks at the level that he does. But that's
this is what I don't like. And I'm sorry, Jason. Jim, this is what I don't like. For folks to sit up here and have this cavalier attitude when it comes to racism in this country, and not the dog whistle, but the bullhorn that has been used by this president and other races. And there have been plenty of fine people in this country who have held judgeships, have been in law enforcement, have been politicians in this country. They're fine folks, but they wallow in racism and bigotry. So I'm not going to let that, I cannot just let that slide here, because we're not dealing with he insults everybody. There is a historic precedence in this country of dehumanizing African Americans and using the images of monkeys and apes and low intelligence to do so. And this is the same candidate, by the way, who did a commercial teaching Trump lessons to his children, i.e. build the wall. Who was he talking to then? This candidate has embraced President Trump and obviously has embraced his ideology about African Americans, and his truth slipped up today. As far time has passed for people who wearing white sheets, wearing blue suits over white sheets.
Senator, guys, I think that's come on. You can't, Senator.
Please respond, but we are going to have to then leave it.
Senator, I think you make some very valid points, and I agree with a lot of the things that you're saying, and I even said just as much. But when I think you start going to Klan imagery and saying that Ron DeSantis's campaign commercial that he ran is somehow racist, then I think that really discredits some very valuable insight and points that I think that you're making.
You as a white man don't get to tell me as a black woman what is racist and what is offensive. I am telling you, and I got history to back me me up
Senator,
about those types of images and remarks that are used.
Reading
so he needs to live with the remarks that he made.
Somehow racist? Ron DeSantis reading
his comments were racist.
Is somehow,
so if he's not a racist, he needs to apologize.
That's not what you said, Senator. You attacked Ron DeSantis.
One at a time.
I attacked him. Okay. I attacked him.
You attacked the campaign commercial and said that it was racist.
Build the wall. We know who he's talking about keeping out. That's black and brown folks, right?
He wants a strong immigration policy.
Folks, we're going to have to leave it. We are going to have to leave it there. And I want to thank you both because this is a really difficult issue, and it's you both taking the hard questions, including from each other. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for doing it on the up and up. And we're going to keep this conversation going. Coming up tonight, out front next, too.
So tonight on the story, there's a big battle shaping up in the bellwether state of Florida in the governor's race, which got really interesting last night. It has been nearly 20 years since the Sunshine State had a Democrat serving in Tallahassee. So now the mayor there, Andrew Gillum, has shocked the political world with this upset win in the Democratic gubernatorial primary. He faces Ron DeSantis, the come-from-behind congressman, got a very big boost with the president's support there. And it didn't take long, though, for this thing to get heated after DeSantis said this on Fox News earlier today.
Let's build off the success we've had on Governor Scott. The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda.
That led to this.
I say that it was a conscious choice of words, and it's not just a dog whistle, it's a bullhorn.
That wasn't just a dog whistle, that was a bullhorn. I mean, that was a blatantly racist comment.
When you say monkey in reference to an African American, he might as well have just said the N-word.
Juan Williams joins us in a moment with his reaction to that. Chris Steyerwalt on the big picture shaping up in the political Sunshine State. And we begin with Jonathan Hunt in our West Coast newsroom with the top story tonight. Hi, Jonathan.
Hey, good evening, Martha. Let's just set this out for everyone exactly as it happened and in the words of those involved. First, for context, here again is Ron DeSantis on America's Newsroom this morning.
So we've got to work hard to make sure that we continue Florida going in a good direction. Let's build off the success we've had on Governor Scott. The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda with huge tax increases and bankrupting the state.
Terry Rizzo, the chairwoman of the Florida Democratic Party, immediately tweeted, quote, "It's disgusting that Ron DeSantis is launching his general election campaign with racist dog whistles." Within a short time of that, DeSantis' spokesman put out a statement rejecting any allegations that the language Mr. DeSantis used was racist in any way, saying, quote, "Ron DeSantis was obviously talking about Florida not making the wrong decision to embrace the socialist policies that Andrew Gillum espouses. To characterize it as anything else is absurd." This afternoon, Shepard Smith interviewed Mr. Gillum and asked him for his response to the comments by his Republican opponent.
Yeah, that part wasn't lost on me. It's very clear that Mr. DeSantis is taking a page directly from the campaign manual of Donald Trump. But I think he's got another thing coming to him. If he thinks that in today's day and age, Florida voters are going to respond to that level of derision and division, they're sick of it. What we're trying to offer in this race
was
is
that
a
racist or
where we want to go as a state.
Was that racist or a figment of speech?
Well, in the handbook of Donald Trump, they no longer do whistle calls. They're now using full bullhorns.
Now, we're more than 2 months away from the election, Martha. It was always going to be heated in Florida. It got ugly quicker than any of us might have imagined.
Sure did. Jonathan, thank you very much. Good to see you tonight. So Juan Williams, co-host of The Five and a Fox News political analyst and friend of the story here tonight. Juan, good to have you here.
Nice to be with you.
But what was your reaction?
Well, I think what you have to understand is we live in an age of heightened racial tensions, according to every poll out there right now. And this is among whites and blacks who say that racial tensions are higher in the age of Donald Trump than they were previously. And of course, you have to keep in mind he comes after the first black president, President Obama, someone that President Trump had gone after with the birther controversy and the like. And then you come to Ron DeSantis, who is a Trump acolyte. And I might add, you see something very similar taking place in the state of Georgia, where you have a black woman, Stacey Abrams, running against Brian Kemp, another Trump true believer in that state. So here we have racially combustible energy right here in the politics of our country. And then DeSantis comes out and says, not only monkey it up, which I think people might hear as a slur, but he says articulate and a socialist spokesman. And you start to think, I understand he's trying to put down his opponent, as every politician everywhere does. But in this moment, it comes across as racially charged.
I get you. And I obviously, you know, a couple things bother me about it. One is that when I heard it, it didn't occur to me that way at all. You know, I thought monkey it out. It's like, you know, it doesn't sound to me like a racist thing to say. Then what struck me is that my first reference with it was something I saw on Twitter that said that DeSantis said that Florida shouldn't monkey it up by electing a black governor. But that wasn't what he said.
That's not what he said.
And that was everywhere, Juan. Everywhere. There were like 10 references I saw, and I said, there's no way that he said that. You know, why would he say that? Then I looked at it. He didn't say that. He's talking about a reference between you don't want to monkey up the work that he sees as good work by Governor Scott by turning to a socialist plan for the economy in Florida. So what kind of world are we living in where this is how quickly we jump the gun? And then Gillum says, you know, well, we're so divided. How sad that we're divided. But it's not a dog whistle. It's a bullhorn. So instead of saying he doesn't want to be divided, he's using this politically right out of the gate.
You know what you have to keep in mind is that I don't think that Gillum is to be pilloried and said, oh, he is taking advantage of this. I think he said, to the contrary to Shepard Smith this afternoon, he wants to avoid division and derision.
He said that one, but that wasn't what he did.
No, I think that is what he did so far.
He said, oh, no, they don't do. And he used this phrase, which clearly the communications manager for the campaign used the same exact phrase. So clearly they all got together and said, we're going to say it's not a dog whistle, it's a full bullhorn. I mean, that was their crafted statement right out of the gate.
I think this goes beyond him. I think that you can hear this from other members, and you played some of the sound bites coming from members of Congress.
Same phrase, Harana.
Exactly. So you're seeing this come from across the Democratic
spectrum. Is that a phrase that people use? It's not a dog whistle, it's a bullhorn?
Is that a phrase? Yes.
So, I mean, this is obviously what they have decided is the critical. I would love it if someone would come out of this kind of situation and say, you know what, I'm not going to go there. I'm sure that's not what the man meant. Let's talk about the issue.
Well, you can say that. I mean, but the thing is, then you run the risk of closing your eyes to an explosive issue in our body politic and something that could be ruinous. And the issue here is not about politeness, because my spirit is with you, Martha. I would say, look, I don't think the guy meant anything. Let's just move on. Let's go back to the politics.
We can't do that anymore in this
world.
You
can't in this moment where you have the president going after Maxine Waters and
Maxine Waters goes after him.
No, let me tell you. All right, Frederica Wilson, we could go on about the number of black people that this president directly attacks in a way that sparks racial tensions in this society.
I mean, if you're going to talk about counterattacks, I would say he's pretty colorblind in that. He goes after men, he goes after women, he goes after black people, he goes after white people. I mean, he goes after everybody. So I don't think...
you have to, be ahistorical or blind to the racial history of this country and the racial tensions of this moment to somehow say, oh, well, why do you guys see race? Why do black people always have a chip on their shoulder? There's a real reason in this moment, given that DeSantis is, and you heard this from Gillum, he is Trump's guy, that he is echoing this kind of talk, and you would think that he's a politician, that he wouldn't be using language like monkey around. We've had episodes where people are talking about cotton picking. You start to think, hey, Martha, I think they're sending a signal. And it may be that they suggest, hey, I have deniability. But at some point you have to say, you know what? I think you're pushing that button for a very specific reason, to excite the worst elements that show up in a Charlottesville. And that's, again, where we are in America.
Yeah,
we're a year out of Charlottesville.
Yes, but I think it's really sad to make those assumptions about a phrase like that. Look at dictionary.com, okay? Because I started looking up these references. Dictionary.com is even sort of jumping into the game, okay? They say when the words monkey this up are used to refer to electing a man of color, that would be a blatant, and then they connect directly to dog whistles. So they're also on the same page with the way this is supposed to be read. Then you go to, then someone else, you know, just going through all this on Twitter, pulls up Merriam-Webster, and they go to this, which says monkey around, which is a slightly different phrase, but it means to take things, to do things that are not useful or serious, to waste time, as in a young scientist monkeying around in a lab. It would have never occurred to me that to monkey something up might be something that would be perceived as racist.
Well, you know, in general, if I'm talking to you, if we ran into each other in the hallway on the 17th floor and we talked about monkeying, so I wouldn't even give it a thought, Martha. In this environment where you have the first black man running for the governor of Florida, for his opponent to immediately begin with language about he's articulate, monkey this up.
Honestly,
it reminds me.
I think the articulate is more of a dog whistle, to be honest with you.
Well, you remember when Biden.
But I do, because I remember when Joe Biden said it about President Obama when he was running, and that I thought, oh, that didn't sit right with me, because I thought, would you say that about, you know, a young, together white man who was running? Would you point out that he's articulate? I think that is a more explosive word in a way than this whole thing. But this is what got seized upon. And what dismays me is to see their campaign jump right in, assume the worst in him, assume that this is what he's doing, connect it all to Donald Trump, and that just further inflames the divisiveness.
Well, I think we live in an era.
We all need to stand up and not give in to that kind of divisive debate.
Well, I don't think there's any way that we can't acknowledge reality in front of us. When the president is talking about black NFL players as fire those SOBs, when he is saying that LeBron James is dumb, at some point you have to say, wait a second. Yeah, he attacks lots of people, but I notice he has a way of going after black people as lazy, dumb, dishonest. You think, you know, at some point, I think this is why a lot of people, including the leadership here at Fox, said, you know, we don't condone that kind of language.
Nobody condones that. I don't want him to call anybody dumb or lazy. Yeah. And I do not see it necessarily the way you do, because I think he viciously attacks a lot of people, and I have a problem with that. Yeah. But I don't necessarily see it the way that you do. But I respect your opinion, and I'm glad to see you tonight. And I thank you for coming in.
I'm going to continue teasing you.
Thank you, Juan.
You're
Good
welcome.
to see you tonight. All right, so here with more, Chris Stirewalt, our Fox News politics editor, to talk about what we saw last night in all of these races. But Chris, just, you know, to weigh in on this issue, first of all, do you think this was damaging to DeSantis? And what do you think of the Gillum campaign's choice to you know, quickly jump on that issue and say that he was being racist?
We knew this would be a stupid and issue-free campaign. We did not know how quickly we would get to full stupidity and vapidity as we have in this case. We know what the playbook is going to be for both Gillum and DeSantis. DeSantis is going to call him a socialist. Gillum is going to call him a racist. And away we go. And they didn't even make it 6 hours into the campaign, the general election campaign, before we were at full bore. You're a socialist. Oh, yeah, you're a racist. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. What do you make of the fact that this is being seen as sort of a proxy between Bernie Sanders and President Trump, and that it could set up, it will be looked at on election night in Florida as a sort of gauge for where America is on this, since it's such a bellwether state?
And Florida is the biggest alligator in the swing state swamp. And you can't be president, essentially, without winning Florida. Right. And Donald Trump won there by less than 2 points. How this plays out, we're going to be looking at very closely, because both sides are playing with plutonium here, right? Both sides, I think it's safe to say that Floridians are going to hear very little about the issues compared to what they're going to hear about Donald Trump. They're going to hear about impeachment. They're going to hear about Bernie Sanders. They're going to hear about socialism. They're going to go right to the beating heart of the political conflict in the country today.
No doubt. Take me to Arizona for a minute. Your thoughts on Martha McSally winning the race that she won there. Kelly Ward and Joe Arpaio were her opponents. How does that shape up to you?
Man, Mitch McConnell plays for keeps. This guy is, I have to say, if you would have said a year ago that he would be able to get so many candidates through so many straightened situations and so many difficult spots, and really, for the Republicans, if McSally had lost that primary, we'd be taking it off the board. It would be a Democrat pickup for sure. If Kelly Ward had won that seat, that would be gone. McSally is going to make this a heck of a good race. We have it listed right now in our power index as a toss-up, and it could be really anybody's game. You you have two good candidates who are going to go hard at each other.
Kristen Sinema.
Yep, the Democrat Kristen Sinema. You have two swing district female members of the House running for a Senate seat. It's going to be great.
So in terms of Martha McSally, I mean, she was a real never-Trumper. And now she sort of has changed her take on that issue, on the president. And he, put out a very gracious tweet about his support for her. I guess one of the questions is, what kind of senator is she if she gets to Washington, do you think, in the end?
I think there is a setting, a bandwidth, and you heard it from Adam Putnam in Florida. You've heard it from McConnell. McConnell has sort of piped the tune on this. The Republicans have learned how to dance to, which is don't talk about the things that Trump says that are divisive or explosive. Lindsey Graham quoted John McCain about something. Help him where you can and you think it's appropriate, but don't get drawn into the blank blank. And that's what Republican senators generally have tried to do in the main. And I think that's what kind of Senator McSally would be if she can make it through this.
Interesting. Duncan Hunter, before I let you go, here's what he said last Thursday on our show about his financial problems and his wife's potential culpability. Watch this.
She handled my finances throughout my entire military career, and that continued on when I got into Congress. She was also the campaign manager. So whatever she did on that'll be looked at too, I'm sure. But I didn't do it. I didn't spend any money illegally.
Yeah, that didn't go over too well for him. And today he came out and tried to fix it. He said, leave my wife out of it, leave my family out of it. It's me they're after anyway. They're not after my wife. They want to take me down. That's what they're up to.
Your heart just breaks for a family in a situation like this. And, look, politics is rough stuff. When you bring in prosecution and federal corruption charges, my gosh. But, there's kids involved. There's a family involved here. And I would just say for every politician, when you're in the fight and it looks like you've got a good opportunity, it looks like maybe you have a chance to throw some heat off yourself or change the discussion, your family's got to come first. And it sounds like Hunter is in that place now, that family's got to come first and let the elections fall where they may.
Wise words. Chris, thank you. Good to see you tonight, as always.
You bet.
So how far might liberals go to protect Pope Francis? Ben Shapiro says brace yourselves on this fight, and what is it really all about? He's live next.
Story is brought to you by the Lincoln Summer Invitation Sales Event. Hurry in for limited time offers.
Let your perfect drive come together during the final days of the Lincoln Summer Invitation event. Get 0% APR on select 2018 Lincoln models plus $1,000 bonus cash.
Insurance that won't replace the full value of your new car? You're better off throwing your money right into the harbor. Gonna regret that.
With Liberty Mutual New Car Replacement, we'll replace the full value of your car.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
You wouldn't accept an incomplete job from anyone else. Why accept it from your allergy pills? Flonase Sensimist relieves all your worst symptoms, including nasal congestion, which most pills don't. And all from a gentle mist you can barely feel. Flonase Sensimist.
Who would have thought? Who would have guessed? An energy company helping drivers pump less. Reducing emissions is our ongoing quest. Energy lives here.
What is love? 2 hearts, 1 soul, a kiss, a hug, a laugh. It's passion. It's freedom. It's mystery. It's the journey and the destination. It's vows made and promises kept. It's a feeling, a need, no rules. All included, all unlimited. Feed your hunger, quench your thirst, live your dreams. Fulfilled, indulged, reborn. What is love? Love is all you need. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
It's the Labor Day sale at Ace.
The perfect time to buy a grill from our exclusive lineup of premium brands.
Right now, save $50 on select Weber Spirit grills. Plus, get free assembly and delivery on grills $3.99 and up. Now through